Before we start this video, I want to give a huge shout out to Upsy for sponsoring it. If you don't know who Upsy is, they are a service that is really killing it and changing the insurance industry. They offer really cheap insurance on countless electronics. They aim to put the customer first by offering extremely cheap prices on a ton of electronics and having fantastic customer service. They really go above and beyond to take care of their customers. So yeah, not only is Upsy sponsoring this video, but they're also sponsoring a giveaway, so depending on when you're watching this, the giveaway might be over. But if you're watching this in time, they're sponsoring a Samsung Galaxy S8 giveaway, so one of you guys can take home a brand new one. Check out that video right here for information on how to enter. But with that said, thank you to Upsy for sponsoring this video. If you love Upsy as much as I do, and you want to get Upsy, but you want even cheaper prices than they already are, you can use my code MBT88 on screen now. First link in the description down below for even cheaper prices at checkout. Thank you again to Upsy for sponsoring it. Let's get into this camera comparison. Hey guys, what's going on? It's Jack here from Nothing But Tech. Welcome back to another video. If you love cameras as much as I do, it's probably pretty important to you that your smartphone has a pretty good one. So in today's video, we're going to be comparing three of the highest end smartphones on the market, including the LG G6, the Samsung S8, and of course the iPhone 7 Plus. Although it's a bit old, it's still the latest flagship from Apple, so I thought I'd include it in this video to see which one wins it all. So before we get into showing you guys all the samples and talking about which one's my favorite and which one has the best camera overall, what I do want to say is that all of these phones are in the $700 starting range for how much they cost, and that's really expensive. So for that money, all these phones really have a great camera. There are some differences in different environments where one camera outperforms the other, but for $700, you should be expecting a great camera, and you really do get that on these devices. And then the second quick note is actually a fun one. MBT's V4 just launched. It looks like this. It comes in a t-shirt and stickers that you can add to like your computer or something. I think it looks pretty sick. You could check that out also in the description. But let's get into the camera comparison. Okay, so starting out with specifications on the LG G6, we have two cameras. You'll see all the specs on screen now, but the main difference between the two cameras is how wide the lens is. So they're both 13 megapixel sensors, but the wide angle lens is worse quality than the regular angled lens, but it does help in certain situations where you want to get more of a scene in. It's nice to have the wide angle, so I would trade in quality for a wide angle in certain cases. So it's nice to have the option between higher quality but a tighter frame and less quality but a wider frame. So I'm very happy to have the two lenses. Definitely something that I missed on the S8, which only has one lens. So you'll be able to see tests in this video of both the regular lens and the wide angle lens. But now let's talk about the specs of the S8. Okay, so in terms of what the S8 packs, it packs a 12 megapixel sensor with an f1.7 aperture, and it's only one lens here, unlike the G6 or the iPhone 7 Plus. And the camera is definitely a great sensor, but it would be nice sometimes to get the wider angle shot or the tighter shot like the iPhone 7 Plus offers. But overall, the S8 definitely packs a great camera. It is a slightly different sensor than the S7 from last year, so you'll be able to see a bunch of tests of the camera, and little spoiler here, the photos are almost always awesome, if not a little bit oversaturated. More on that soon though. Let's talk about the iPhone 7 Plus specs. Okay, so last but not least, we have the iPhone 7 Plus, and it rocks two cameras. Both of them are 12 megapixels. The difference here is the focal length and also the aperture. The closer in telephoto lens has an f2.8 aperture, whereas the wider lens has an f1.8 aperture, which means that the wider lens will have better depth of field and overall just a better picture. But it will be nice to have the second lens for the portrait mode that the iPhone offers, which is basically a way to get greater depth of field in an image, and also just to get a closer shot when you need it. So that's the iPhone 7 Plus specifications. With all of that out of the way, let's go into the camera test, and I'll tell you guys which was my favorite overall. Okay, so this first test is an outdoor test with optimal lighting. All devices perform pretty well here. Looking first at the S8 and G6, we can see that the images are a lot more saturated and vibrant in comparison to the iPhone 7 Plus. So the photo that the iPhone took is definitely the most accurate representation of the scene, but that doesn't mean that it's the best photo. That definitely comes down to personal preference. The G6 crushes the blacks a lot more than the iPhone 7 Plus and also looks a bit more vibrant, but overall, out of the three, the S8 is my favorite because it's the most saturated shot and offers a really warm vibe, which is the kind of thing I'm looking for in a photo like this. Here's another example in very similar lighting conditions. The same story holds true here in terms of saturation, but where the S8 and the iPhone 7 Plus nail focus, the G6 missed focus, which I find happens a lot more on the LG phone than on the other two phones in the mix. The green looks really natural on the iPhone 7 Plus, but pops out more on the S8. The editor in me prefers the iPhone 7 Plus's natural look in this case, as it leaves room for color correction in post, but it's definitely personal preference, so let me know what you think in the comments down below. Switching to some low-light photos, this is where all the cameras start to suffer a bit. The S8 completely oversaturated the photo in this case, making the white control pad have a really yellow hue. It looks less grainy than the iPhone 7 Plus, but the colors on the iPhone were a lot more accurate. The LG G6 did not get focus again, which seems to be a theme here, but it represented the white a bit more accurately. Also, if you haven't noticed, the G6's images are tighter in on its regular lens than the S8 or the iPhone 7 Plus, so when we switch over to the wide-angle lens, we get a lot more in the frame than the other photos, but the photo still looks kinda soft. This next round was taken in mild lighting conditions, and you can see that the G6 actually nails focus this time, but it overexposes my hand completely, where the iPhone 7 Plus and S8 did not. The S8 did slightly overexpose my thumb, but it is still my overall winner here, as the focus on the 7 Plus looks kinda soft. A quick note about focus is that I'm not tapping on the screen to focus in these images, I'm just tapping the shutter button and hoping that it gets the right focus, and the iPhone 7 Plus and S8 get it a lot more than the G6, which often misses focus or focuses on the wrong thing. So I would say that if you really want to nail focus on the G6, you're probably best off tapping the screen to get your subject in focus, but I feel like that shouldn't be a necessity to get the camera to focus, and I feel like you should just do it. So for that reason, the G6 often falls behind the iPhone 7 Plus and the S8 in terms of which camera I prefer the most. Switching back over to some outdoor shots though, this one of the sky looks great on every single device. The sky pops the most on the S8, and when zooming in on the S8, it's also the sharpest photo, but I think out of all of them, the LG G6 is my favorite, as it's in the middle of being super neutral like the iPhone 7 Plus, but being saturated like the S8 without it being overdone. That's a tough call though, as all of the images look great, and I'd be happy posting any of these photos to social media, so definitely let me know which one you prefer. Heading back to some low light photos, this one of the arcade machine really shows how great these cameras can perform in low light some of the time. All the phones got the focus right in this shot, and the colors look great on every single device. As always, the S8 is the most saturated photo out of the three, but surprisingly, when you zoom in on every photo, it's obvious that the iPhone 7 Plus is the sharpest, which is surprising considering that Samsung adds a lot of post-sharpening. Switching over to video mode for a sec, the G6 had a lot of trouble keeping focus, whereas the S8 and the 7 Plus didn't have any issue at all. The stabilization across all devices was pretty consistent, but I think that the iPhone 7 Plus looks the least jittery. In the G6 video, it can easily be switched to the wide-angle lens, which is really cool in a scenario like this for getting the full shot. Looking at samples from the phones in full 4K, let's start with the iPhone. The shot looks pretty stable considering that it was taken in a handheld mode, and the iPhone didn't have any trouble keeping focus on the shot without me having to touch the screen. The video was also taken in pretty decent lighting, so there really isn't that much noticeable grain. Next, the S8 also produces a great video, but the stabilization is definitely slightly worse in comparison, as it looks a bit jittery. The frame also has a bit of a greenish red tint to it and a lot more grain than the iPhone 7 Plus. Overall though, the video from the S8 looks pretty good, and I'm kind of just nitpicking here. I'd be happy with this video if I were to post it somewhere. Switching over to the G6, the white also looks a little on the blue side, which seems like another common theme with the G6's cameras. The stabilization is about up to par with the Samsung Galaxy S8 though, which is nice to see on an LG device, as it couldn't be said in past years. In my opinion, LG cameras in the past always had like a type of jello effect to them when walking around, as the stabilization was a bit too harsh. Going over to a portrait photo for a sec, this one was taken in studio lighting with blue LEDs in the back. On my professional $2,500 camera, this shot would look something like this, but on a smartphone camera, they all had trouble separating me from the background, so although I had studio LEDs pointed directly at me, the image kind of looks underexposed, and my skin tones go to the bluish purple side due to the LEDs behind me. The G6 is more cropped in as it's on the regular lens than the other two cameras, but overall on all the devices, this image is passable, but nothing beyond that, as the LEDs really messed up my skin tones in the photo. Looking at this image of a Coca-Cola box, the crop factor on the G6 is definitely noticeable. Although the G6 has a wider lens, it is worse quality than the regular lens, so I'm a bit disappointed at the crop factor in comparison to two other phones, as I would have liked to see a bit of a wider angle on the regular lens so I could still get the good quality without having to resort to the wide angle lens to get more of my shot but have worse quality. Per usual, the S8 and the LG G6 both have images that are more saturated than the iPhone 7 Plus, but in this case I actually think that looks great as the red really pops, so I'm going to say that the G6 and the S8 S8 tie for a win here. For our second to last sample image, I took a picture of really well lit flowers. The G6 completely missed focus, so I'm going to take it out of the running, but the S8 and the iPhone 7 Plus both not only nailed focus, but they also nailed color as well. The iPhone 7 Plus's image is a lot darker than the S8, so I think that the S8 did a better overall job exposing the image, giving it the W in this case. Our final image is one of a lamp. The iPhone surprisingly missed focus on this image, so just like the G6 in the last round, the iPhone is immediately going to take the L here. The lamp actually has a really warm hue to it, so I think that although it's a bit overdone, the S8 portrays that really well here. The G6 takes a much cooler white balance, which wasn't what this scene was. If you're looking for realism, the S8 is my pick in this particular round, but if you don't actually care how the shot was actually looking in real life, but you just want a cool photo, I think that the G6 takes the cake. Okay, so that's gonna be it for this video. Definitely let me know if you enjoyed it. If you want to see more camera comparisons, drop a like and leave a comment down below. And yeah, let me know which camera you thought was the best out of all of the samples and stuff. It really depends on what you look for in a camera. If you really like that saturated, sharp look, you might like the S8 or the G6 over the 7 Plus, but if you like the toned down, kind of neutral, this is how it actually was when I took the photo kind of look, you might prefer the 7 Plus. It also comes down to if you want a wider angle lens like the G6. I personally actually use that a lot. I didn't think I was going to, but it actually comes in handy for like scenery or just trying to get like more into a shot. Or if you like the 7 Plus because you can get really close to a subject 2 times what the regular camera can do. And you can also use the portrait mode to get really cool depth effect on photo as you saw. So it really comes down to what you look for in a camera. No matter what phone you go with, you are going to be getting a great camera here. And I don't think that the camera should be the one reason why you get a phone, because the camera in all of these will definitely impress you. If you like S8 coverage and G6 coverage, I have a lot more coming, so be sure to subscribe. If you want to see any other tech videos, definitely let me know with a comment down below which video you want to see. And if you want to check out the S8 unboxed, you can check it right here. You can subscribe here and check out my other content here. I appreciate you guys all taking the time out to watch this video. Definitely let me know what you think of it, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Bye!